Friendship paradox. Why do your friends appear to have more friends than you? It's not just in your imagination. It's a genuine phenomenon known as the friendship paradox. This counterintuitive concept suggests that, on average, your friends tend to be more popular than you are. But how is that possible? And more importantly, what does it reveal about how we interact, connect, and compare ourselves to others? Let's begin with the mathematics behind the paradox. Imagine a social network, not the kind on your phone, but rather the web of connections linking people together. Some individuals have only a few friends, while others are social butterflies, connected to dozens or even hundreds of people. The friendship paradox arises because individuals with many friends are more likely to be your friends. Why is that the case? Consider it this way. If someone has 100 friends, they have 100 chances of being connected to you, whereas someone with just 2 friends has only 2 chances. In a network, the popular individuals act as hubs, disproportionately influencing the average number of friends your friends have. This mathematical quirk means that when you compare yourself to your friends, you're more likely to be comparing yourself to someone with above-average popularity. Because of this bias, your friends, on average, will appear to have more connections than you do. The paradox isn't solely about self-perception. It reflects the way networks function, from social circles to the internet. However, the friendship paradox extends beyond mere numbers. It carries significant psychological and social implications, particularly in an era dominated by social media. When we scroll through platforms like Instagram or Facebook, we often see the highlights of other people's lives, vacations, parties, and achievements, shared by our most well-connected friends. This fosters the illusion that everyone else is more popular, more successful, or more interesting than we are. The friendship paradox helps explain why this illusion is so pervasive. We are naturally more exposed to the lives of the most connected individuals, which amplifies our sense of comparison. This phenomenon can have a profound impact on mental health. Research indicates that social comparison is a key driver of anxiety, envy, and even depression. The friendship paradox serves as a reminder that these comparisons are often based on a distorted perspective. Your friends may seem more connected, but that's largely a consequence of how networks function, not because you are less valuable or less connected yourself. Interestingly, the friendship paradox is more than just a curiosity. It has practical applications, particularly in public health. For instance, it is used to identify influential individuals in social networks. During a disease outbreak, health officials might target vaccination campaigns or public health messages toward highly connected individuals, as they are more likely to influence others. By leveraging the paradox, we can enhance the spread of useful information and mitigate the spread of harmful misinformation or diseases. The paradox also provides insight into the dynamics of influence and inequality within networks. In any network, whether it's a group of friends, a professional community, or a social media platform, connections are not distributed evenly. A small number of individuals tend to hold a disproportionate amount of influence. The friendship paradox highlights how this inequality shapes our perceptions, interactions, and even opportunities. However, perhaps the most profound lesson of the friendship paradox is what it teaches us about perspective. It reminds us that our view of the world is always partial, shaped by the connections and relationships we have. Just as your friends seem more popular, your perception of other aspects of life, success, happiness, or wealth, may also be skewed by the people you are exposed to. The paradox encourages us to question these perceptions, recognize their limitations, and focus on what truly matters. The friendship paradox isn't merely about numbers. It's about understanding how we relate to others and how networks influence our lives. It challenges us to rethink how we compare ourselves to others, to look beyond surface-level popularity, and to appreciate the unique connections we have. Because, in the end, it's not about the number of friends you have, it's about the depth, meaning, and quality of those relationships. No paradox can take that away from you. Crocodile paradox. Let's suppose your child has been snatched by a crocodile. You're standing at the edge of a river, your heart pounding, your breath shallow. The crocodile looks at you with its cold, unblinking eyes and says, "I will return your child if and only if you can correctly guess what I will do next." At this moment, your world freezes. You realize this isn't just a life or death situation. It's a logical trap. No matter what you answer, you're stepping into a paradox. This dilemma has baffled philosophers and thinkers for centuries. It's not just a puzzle about a predator and its prey. It's a profound exploration of knowledge, logic, and the limits of certainty. Let's carefully walk through this tangled web of reasoning. You have two possible answers to give the crocodile. Consider the first scenario. In this scenario, you predict that the crocodile will return your child. If the crocodile plans to return your child, your prediction is correct, and the crocodile fulfills its promise. Everything aligns, and your child is safe. But if the crocodile plans to keep your child, your prediction is wrong, and the crocodile isn't bound to return the child. In this scenario, everything remains logically consistent because the outcome depends entirely on whether your prediction aligns with the crocodile's intention. The real paradox emerges in the second scenario. In this scenario, you predict that the crocodile will not return your child. If the crocodile plans to keep the child, your prediction is correct, but now the crocodile is forced to return the child because your prediction was accurate. This creates a contradiction because the crocodile cannot both keep the child and honor its promise to return them when your prediction is correct. On the other hand, if the crocodile plans to return the child, your prediction is wrong, and by the terms of the deal, the crocodile should not have returned the child in the first place. In either case, the crocodile is trapped in a logical contradiction. So what's really going on here? The crocodile paradox is a classic example of a self-referential paradox, where a statement refers to itself in a way that creates an impossible situation. It's similar to the famous liar's paradox where someone says, "This statement is false." If the statement is true, then it must be false. But if it's false, then it must be true. The crocodile paradox operates on this same slippery logic, where the crocodile's promise collapses under its own weight. But beyond the logical puzzle, the crocodile paradox also raises deeper philosophical questions. At its core, it's about the nature of promises, truth, and trust. If a promise creates a scenario where it cannot logically be kept, is it really a promise at all? And if a situation is built on contradictory rules, can any outcome truly be fair or just? In a way, the paradox reflects real-world situations where agreements are made under flawed premises. Think about legal contracts filled with loopholes, political promises built on conflicting conditions, or even personal dilemmas where every choice seems to backfire. The crocodile paradox isn't just a brain teaser. It's a mirror reflecting the complexity and imperfection of the promises we make and the expectations we set. But let's not forget the crocodile in this story. The paradox also reveals something about power and control. The crocodile isn't just a passive participant in this riddle. It's the architect of the trap. By setting the rules in a way that guarantees contradiction, the crocodile ensures that no answer can fully satisfy the agreement. In a sense, it represents authority structures or systems where the rules are intentionally rigged to maintain control, even in the face of logic and fairness. So can this paradox ever be solved? Philosophers have debated this question for centuries, and the general consensus is no. The paradox isn't meant to have a resolution because it's not about finding an answer. It's about understanding the problem. It's a thought experiment designed to expose the limits of language, logic, and our assumptions about fairness and promises. But perhaps the real lesson of the crocodile paradox is this. Not every question has an answer, not every problem can be untangled through pure reasoning, and sometimes the power lies not in solving the puzzle but in recognizing the trap it creates. So if you ever find yourself face to face with a crocodile offering a deal that seems impossible to fulfill, remember this paradox. Sometimes the game is rigged from the start, and the only winning move is to recognize the paradox for what it is, a cleverly constructed trap hiding behind the illusion of choice. Stability and stability paradox. The more secure you try to make things, the more dangerous they become. Sounds counterintuitive, doesn't it? But this is the very essence of the stability and stability paradox. Rooted in political science and international relations, this concept reveals how efforts to maintain peace and stability can paradoxically increase the likelihood of conflict. It's a fascinating yet unsettling idea that challenges our understanding of security and the delicate balance of power. The stability-instability paradox emerged during the Cold War, a period marked by tensions between two nuclear superpowers, the United States and the Soviet Union. Both nations possessed enough nuclear weapons to destroy each other, and the world many times over. This concept of mutually assured destruction created what seemed like an ironic form of peace. After all, no rational actor would initiate a nuclear war, knowing it would lead to total annihilation. But this is where the paradox arises. While the threat of nuclear war stabilized global relations, it simultaneously made smaller, localized conflicts more likely. Why? Because when two major powers recognize that full-scale war is off the table, they may feel emboldened to engage in smaller, indirect confrontations. During the Cold War, this manifested through proxy wars, conflicts in Vietnam, Korea, and Afghanistan, where the superpowers backed opposing sides without directly confronting each other. The very stability created by the nuclear stalemate paradoxically increased the likelihood of these smaller wars. At its core, the stability-instability paradox revolves around incentives. When stability is enforced at the highest level, through a balance of power, deterrence, or fear of escalation, it can generate a sense of security that lowers the perceived risks of smaller-scale conflicts. Actors may believe they can engage in limited aggression without triggering a catastrophic response. In this way, the paradox illustrates how attempts to maintain peace can unintentionally create opportunities for violence. However, the paradox is not confined to the Cold War. It carries profound implications for modern geopolitics. Consider the current era of nuclear-armed states. While the doctrine of mutually assured destruction still functions as a deterrent against full-scale war, the same dynamic persists in regional conflicts. For instance, tensions between nuclear-armed neighbors like India and Pakistan have periodically escalated into skirmishes and border disputes, even with the looming threat of nuclear escalation in the background. The paradox reminds us that stability at one level can generate instability at another. The stability-instability paradox extends beyond warfare. Take cybersecurity, for example. As nations and organizations develop increasingly secure digital systems, they inadvertently escalate an arms race with hackers and cybercriminals. The stronger the defenses, the more sophisticated the attacks become, creating a cycle of systemic stability but tactical instability. Similarly, in economics, efforts to stabilize markets through regulation can sometimes give rise to localized bubbles or crises, as actors exploit perceived safety nets. This paradox raises difficult questions about security and power. How do we balance efforts to maintain stability with the unintended consequences that may arise? Is it possible to create a system that is both secure and flexible without inviting the kind of instability the paradox describes? These questions lack easy answers, but they emphasize the need to think critically about the ripple effects of our actions. One of the most profound lessons of the stability-instability paradox is the importance of humility in decision-making. It reminds us that systems, whether geopolitical alliances, technological networks, or economic markets, are complex and deeply interconnected. Actions meant to solve one problem often create new ones, and the consequences of those actions can be difficult to predict. The paradox challenges us to look beyond short-term goals and consider broader dynamics at play. It also underscores the need for communication and trust. In international relations, transparency and dialogue help mitigate the risk of miscalculation. When actors understand each other's intentions and capabilities, they are less likely to stumble into conflicts that could spiral out of control. The stability-instability paradox warns us against assuming that stability is self-sustaining. It requires constant effort, cooperation, and vigilance. But perhaps the most unsettling aspect of the paradox is its persistence. As long as power imbalances and competing interests exist, the dynamics it describes will continue to shape our world. The paradox forces us to confront an uncomfortable reality. Peace is fragile and often paradoxical in nature. It is not merely the absence of conflict, but a delicate equilibrium that can be easily tipped into instability. So, what can we learn from the stability-instability paradox? First, it teaches us to challenge the assumption that stability is always a good thing. While stability can reduce the risk of large-scale conflict, it can also create conditions for smaller-scale aggression. Second, it encourages us to critically analyze the unintended consequences of our actions, particularly within complex systems. And finally, it reminds us that true security demands more than just deterrence. It requires understanding, adaptability, and a willingness to engage with uncertainty. In the end, the stability-instability paradox is not just a concept from international relations. It is a lens for understanding the complexities of human behavior, systems, and relationships. It challenges us to navigate the fine line between peace and conflict, stability and chaos, and to recognize that the answers to these challenges are rarely simple. Perhaps the greatest lesson of the paradox is this: the pursuit of stability is itself a dynamic and ever-evolving process. It requires continuous reflection, humility, and careful consideration. Ship of Theseus. If you replaced every part of a ship over time, its planks, its sails, its wheel, until none of the original parts remained, would it still be the same ship? This question, known as the Ship of Theseus, is one of the most enduring and puzzling paradoxes of all time. It doesn't just challenge how we think about objects. It forces us to question the very nature of identity itself. What makes something what it is? Is it the material it's made of, the way it's put together, or something more abstract? Imagine a ship docked in a harbor. Over the years, parts of it begin to rot and wear out. First, the crew replaces a few planks, then a mast, then another plank, until eventually, every single piece of the ship has been replaced. It still sails the seas, carries its crew, and looks like the same ship. But is it? And if it isn't, when did it stop being the Ship of Theseus? Was it after one plank was replaced, or 10, or all of them? Now, let's complicate the question even further. Suppose someone gathers all the old discarded pieces of the original ship, and uses them to reconstruct it elsewhere. Which is now the true Ship of Theseus? The one rebuilt from its original parts, or the one that has been continuously maintained and updated? Or are they both, in some strange way, the same ship? This paradox doesn't offer easy answers. Instead, it leaves us tangled in questions about what identity truly means. The Ship of Theseus isn't just a thought experiment about ships. It's a metaphor for everything in life that changes over time. Think about yourself. The cells in your body are constantly dying and regenerating. By the time you've lived a few decades, most of the cells you were born with have been replaced. Are you still the same person? If so, what makes you you? Is it your memories, your personality, or something deeper and less tangible? The paradox also forces us to consider the nature of objects around us. If you own an old car and gradually replace every part, is it still the same car? Created with time, the Ship of Theseus reveals that our concept of identity is far more fluid than we often realize. It shows that the things we think of as fixed and permanent are actually in a constant state of change. Philosophers have grappled with this question for centuries. Some argue that identity is tied to continuity of function or purpose. For the Ship of Theseus, this would mean that as long as the ship continues to sail and fulfill its role, it remains the same ship, regardless of the materials it's made of. Others suggest that identity is tied to the material itself, that the reconstructed ship made from the original parts is the true Ship of Theseus because it retains the original substance. There's also a third perspective, which challenges the idea that identity is a single, fixed thing at all. This view suggests that the Ship of Theseus isn't one ship or the other. It's both. Identity, in this sense, isn't a matter of either or, but both and. It evolves and adapts, shaped by context and perception. In a way, the Ship of Theseus forces us to confront the idea that the boundaries we draw around identity, whether for ships, objects, or ourselves, are largely artificial. The paradox also has profound implications for how we think about personal growth and change. As individuals, we are constantly evolving. Our beliefs, values, and experiences shape us over time, often in ways we don't fully recognize. If you look back at who you were 5, 10, or 20 years ago, you might feel like a completely different person. But are you? Or are you, like the Ship of Theseus, a continuation of the same essence, carried forward through time and transformation? This paradox even extends to how we think about societies, cultures, and traditions. A city may replace its buildings, roads, and infrastructure over centuries, yet it still feels like the same place. Languages evolve, losing old words and gaining new ones, yet they remain recognizable. Traditions are passed down and adapted, but they retain a sense of continuity. The ship of Theseus reminds us that identity is not about holding on to the past. It's about navigating change while preserving a sense of connection to what came before. So, how do we resolve the ship of Theseus? The truth is, we don't. Like all great paradoxes, it doesn't have a definitive answer. Instead, it challenges us to think about identity in ways that are richer and more nuanced. It shows us that change doesn't erase what was. It builds on it. Whether it's a ship, a car, a city, or a person, identity is not something static or absolute. It's a process, a journey, and a story we tell ourselves. The ship of Theseus teaches us that even as we change, something essential remains. What that something is might differ depending on how we view the world. But the paradox reminds us that identity isn't a simple equation. It's a dance between the old and the new, the past and the future, the parts and the whole. And perhaps that's what makes it so life-changing. Because it challenges us not just to understand identity, but to embrace the beauty of change itself. Grand Hotel Paradox. With an infinite number of rooms, every single room is occupied. Yet somehow, the hotel can still accommodate new guests. How is this possible? This is the Grand Hotel Paradox, a thought experiment introduced by German mathematician David Hilbert, and it's one of the most mind-bending ways to understand infinity. It challenges our intuitive understanding of numbers and space, forcing us to rethink what infinity really means. Picture the Grand Hotel. Every room has a number, 1, 2, 3, and so on, and all the rooms are filled with guests. A traveler arrives at the front desk and asks for a room. The receptionist, without hesitation, smiles and says, "Of course we have space." But how? If every room is occupied, where will the new guest stay? Here's the trick. The receptionist asks every current guest to move to the next room. The person in room 1 moves to room 2, the person in room 2 moves to room 3, and so on. This frees up room 1, which is now available for the new guest. Remarkably, even though the hotel was full, it made space without turning anyone away. That's the strange logic of infinity. There's always room for more. But the paradox doesn't stop there. What if a bus arrives carrying an infinite number of new guests? Surely, even an infinite hotel couldn't handle that, right? Yet the Grand Hotel can. This time, the receptionist asks each current guest to move to a room number that's double their current one. The guest in room 1 moves to room 2, the guest in room 2 moves to room 4, the guest in room 3 moves to room 6, and so on. This leaves all the odd-numbered rooms, an infinite number of them, empty and ready for the new arrivals. The hotel accommodates infinity within infinity, a concept that feels impossible but works perfectly within the rules of mathematics. What does this paradox teach us? First, it reveals that infinity is not just a really large number, it's a completely different kind of quantity. In our everyday lives, numbers are finite and behave predictably. But infinity breaks those rules. In the Grand Hotel, full doesn't mean no more room, and adding to infinity doesn't make it bigger. It's already infinite. The paradox also highlights the difference between potential infinity and actual infinity. Potential infinity is the idea of a process that could go on forever, like counting numbers. Fermi paradox. The universe is vast. So vast that it contains hundreds of billions of galaxies, each with billions of stars, many of which have planets orbiting them. Given these staggering numbers, it seems almost certain that intelligent life must exist somewhere else in the cosmos. And yet, despite decades of searching, we have found no evidence of aliens. No signals, no spacecraft, no traces of advanced civilizations. This puzzling contradiction is the Fermi paradox, one of the most intriguing questions humanity has ever faced. The universe is so big, where is everyone? The origins of the paradox. The paradox gets its name from physicist Enrico Fermi, who casually asked this question during a lunch conversation in 1950. The math seems to demand that intelligent life should be out there. With so many stars and planets, Even if life arises on only a tiny fraction of them, there should still be millions, if not billions, of civilizations in our galaxy alone. And if even a small number of these civilizations are capable of interstellar travel, they should have spread across the galaxy by now. So why haven't we seen any evidence? Possible explanations. 1. Intelligent civilizations are extremely rare. One explanation is that intelligent civilizations might be exceedingly rare. While the ingredients for life, water, carbon, energy, are abundant, the leap from simple molecules to complex organisms, and then to intelligent beings, may be so unlikely that it has only happened here on Earth. In this view, humanity might be a cosmic fluke, the result of an extraordinarily improbable sequence of events. 2. Civilizations are too far away. Another possibility is that intelligent civilizations do exist, but they're too far away for us to detect. The scale of the universe is almost incomprehensible. Even at the speed of light, it would take over 100,000 years to cross our galaxy. If alien civilizations are scattered across such immense distances, their signals, if they're sending any, may not have reached us yet. Or perhaps we simply don't have the technology to detect them. 3. Advanced civilizations are hiding. But what if alien civilizations are nearby, and we still don't see them? This leads to another possibility. They might not want to be found. Just as humans are careful about revealing their location in the wild, perhaps advanced civilizations are deliberately keeping quiet, either out of fear of attracting hostile attention or due to a philosophical belief in non-interference. This is sometimes called the zoo hypothesis, the idea that Earth is like an exhibit in a cosmic zoo, observed but left undisturbed. 4. Civilizations self-destruct before contact. There is also the unsettling possibility that civilizations self-destruct before they can make meaningful contact. Advanced technology brings incredible power, but also enormous risks, from nuclear weapons to environmental collapse to artificial intelligence. If intelligent life tends to destroy itself shortly after reaching technological maturity, the galaxy might be littered with the ruins of once thriving civilizations. 5. We may not recognize alien life. Another explanation involves the limits of our own perception. What if alien life exists, but is so different from us that we don't recognize it? We tend to imagine aliens as humanoid beings or civilizations that communicate using radio signals. But life elsewhere could be fundamentally unlike anything we've ever conceived. It might exist in forms we can't detect or in dimensions we can't perceive. They might even be here, but we simply lack the ability to notice them. What the Fermi paradox teaches us. The Fermi paradox forces us to confront not only the vastness of the universe but also the fragility of our assumptions. It's easy to imagine ourselves as the center of the story, but the universe is under no obligation to conform to our expectations. Whether intelligent life is rare, distant, hidden, or extinct, each explanation challenges how we see ourselves and our place in the cosmos. Some thinkers suggest the paradox has a more mundane resolution. Perhaps we simply haven't been looking for long enough or in the right ways. Modern technology has only allowed us to scan for extraterrestrial signals for a few decades, a mere blink of an eye on cosmic timescales. The search for intelligent life may require centuries of effort before yielding results. In this view, the Fermi paradox isn't a mystery. It's a reminder to be patient. A deeper meaning. Others take an even more radical approach, suggesting that the absence of evidence may itself be evidence of something profound. If the universe appears silent and empty, perhaps it's trying to tell us something about the nature of life, intelligence, or the laws of physics. Some theories propose that the very conditions needed to support life might make it inherently rare or fleeting, a brief spark in an otherwise indifferent cosmos. What the Fermi paradox means for us. The Fermi paradox doesn't just ask where the aliens are, it asks what their absence means for us. If we are truly alone, it places an extraordinary responsibility on humanity. It means that the future of intelligent life in the universe rests entirely on our shoulders. It challenges us to take better care of our planet, to protect and preserve the fragile conditions that make life possible, and to think deeply about how we might one day represent ourselves to the cosmos. Ultimately, the Fermi paradox remains unresolved, and that's what makes it so compelling. It invites us to ask the biggest questions about existence, from the origins of life to the fate of civilizations. And while the answers may be elusive, the search itself has the power to unite us, not just as a species, but as beings capable of curiosity, imagination, and hope.